Okay, so thanks for joining us. My name is Steve Consalvez, and I'm fortunate enough to be here with Dan Brule. Those of you who know me know that I like to seek out excellence in this field of human excellence and human psychology. And I first came across breathwork about 30 years ago when I read a small piece in Tony Robbins' book, Unlimited Power, and I started to realize that breathing could make an impact on your life. Well, when you search for excellence, you find that sometimes the coaches, have trainers, and have gurus. And I've been fortunate enough to find Dan at a very small time when he's in Europe, and I'm hoping to bring him over to the UK more and more. But he's given me the great honour of asking him a few questions to camera just now. So, Dan, welcome to our crowd.
Great to be here. Hi, everybody.
So, first off, Dan, could you give us a bit of a background about breathing? Because what I'm learning, spending this time with you, is it's not just about, the 4-point breathing and breathing in certain ways that brings out this stuff that we've got in, but there's actually a whole load of stuff underneath all of that. Can you give these guys a sense of where that all came from for you and what you found with it?
Yeah, well, breathing as a science, as an art, is kind of new to the Western culture, but it's not new in the East. And so breathing practice and Taoist practice, yogic practices in China and India go back centuries, eons. And so what I've tried to do is westernize a lot of these Eastern approaches, spending time in China, spending time in India, and trying to peel away the rituals, the dogmas, and just get to the essence of what are the techniques and why do they work and which ones are best when and for who. And it's just been my passion my whole life to, if anyone knew anything about breathing, I was breathing down their neck or kissing their feet until I got what I could get from them, and I moved on to the next flower like a bee, just collecting, because breathing isn't taught in schools, and it's not something that's on the main screen radar in the West. So you have to really dig around and search and find, and it's been my life for the last 40 years, 52 countries, doing exactly that.
When did you first start finding out and thinking about how breath work or breathing made a difference to people?
It's hard to pinpoint. As a child in kindergarten and the first grade, and being raised Catholic, and first getting the wind of this idea that God breathes into the nostrils of man, and man became a living soul. I don't know, I was 5 years old. That excited me to no end, and I couldn't understand why everybody wasn't excited about that. And some near drowning experiences, and I guess one big thing I can point to was working as an X-ray technician. And as an X-ray technician, you do chest X-rays, and you tell a person, take in a deep breath and hold it. And then you take 2 views, like a back to front or front to back, and then a side view. And I would give these instructions, and over a 2-year period, I must have told 3,000 people to do that. And after the first couple of dozen times, I started to see what people did with those simple instructions. Take in a deep breath and hold it. And it just I began to see how everybody's breathing pattern is unique, and their relationship to the breath and the muscles they use and what they go through to accomplish it. And I just became more and more fascinated. And as an X-ray technician, I had an opportunity to resuscitate someone. I was trained in CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and the first time my training kicked in, I blew into this guy, bounced on his chest a couple of times, and he blinked and woke up. I was totally hooked. It was like a miracle, just amazing. And I just couldn't wait until the next time. And it just fired my passion about what's possible with the breath. If you can bring life back into somebody with the breath. Now I'm working with people who are already alive and showing them how to breathe to become more alive. So it's the same game, just a few steps up the ladder.
And your sensory acuity was pretty profound quite early on, because you told us a story about working with the deep sea divers and how you can, if you pay attention, hear the difference in how they work down a line, a couple of 100 meters, and you could hear how their performance was improved or not based upon their breathing. How did you come come about that?
I started to realize that breathing patterns are like fingerprints, and they're unique, and they're changing each moment, and the breath reflects and expresses a person's emotional state, psychological state, physiological state. It's a constant stream of information that the breathing is expressing and reflecting, and we don't usually focus on that. And I was just obsessed, and when that's all you think about, and that's all you wake up thinking about, and that's all you think about all day, you can't help but begin to gather information that the average person wouldn't.
And so I'm guessing that's where the performance coaches like Tony comes in, right? Because you've been working with Tony, I think, quite a long time now. But how do these guys that are already, developed and tough and stage presence, why do these guys want to learn about breath work? And how did you find out about Tony or him and you?
Well, Tony, I actually got to Tony through his son Jarek. I had met, he was training at the SEAL Fit Training Center in San Diego. Mark Devine was a friend of mine, and I got introduced to Jarek. Jarek did a session, and he went home and told his dad, and so Tony called me up, and the first thing he said is, "Hey, I heard you've been studying breathing for 40 years. I got to meet you." And so that's how, and we developed a friendship. It's been a couple of years now. And we're texting constantly and Skyping, and I show up where he is, he shows up, and we just keep working together.
Yeah, and what a great forward he gives in your book, right?
Yeah, he's conscious of breathing, he's aware of it, he reads it in people, he sees how breathing gives away things. If you're holding back, it shows in how you breathe, and if you're ready to put yourself out there, it shows in how you breathe. He watches subtle changes in the breath. He's been practicing things. And so I love working with guys like that, because if you've done a lot of work on yourself, and if you've done a lot of breathing practice, a little tweak, a little adjustment can make a big difference. Or in his case, it was like coming at the breathing from different angles. It had never occurred to him to approach breathing in different ways. And so I've played with breathing in every way you can imagine. And it's very rare for me to find somebody that I can't very quickly clue them into some things that they just haven't stumbled over on their own.
So I'm curious, because as you know, I've trained a lot of performance coaches, people who want to raise their game. So these people come to me and they've done NLP and they've done Tony's courses and they've done all these courses, but they've not yet got themselves ready to be on the big stage. Mm-hmm. And so what I see between those that have got it and those that haven't is they look different. They look different. So what can these guys get from learning these breathing techniques and this conscious breathing?
Well, I started a personal research project when I was actually around that time, 18, 19 years old, as an X-ray technician. And a very famous surgeon at the time came to the hospital where I worked, and he was like God. All the other surgeons and the hospital people was like, oh my, there was this big thing, he's coming, he's going to do surgery here, he's going to be here for a few weeks. And when I met him, he had a certain charisma. And when he was actually doing surgery, he had a flow about him that it was palpable. And I saw that his breathing was smooth and easy, and it was full and free. Mm-hmm. And the other surgeons were kind of rigid, and they even forgot to breathe when they were doing delicate things. And he had a different relationship to his breath. And it cued me in, and I started to think, wait, if you have reached the top of your field, if you're in the 1% of anything, finance, engineering, medicine, music, whatever, do you breathe differently than the average person? Do you have a different relationship to the breath? Are you more conscious of it? Do you deliberately turn to your breath in moments when other people don't? And the answer is definitely yes. After 40 years and meeting top performers in every field, the answer is absolutely yes. They have a more conscious relationship to their breathing. They're more aware of it. They use it at critical moments. And it's a common factor in high performance. It's the major key skill set that high-performing individuals already have. And if they don't, they need to have it. Because if they've reached a level of excellence and they have yet to really explore the breath, then they're going to take their own practice to a whole new level.
So I definitely see that, because I see that when people are ready, they go on the stage and they're in that zone, they perform. And yet I see a lot of people who are getting up to that and they've got some good things to say, and sometimes they perform on stage, but sometimes there's something not quite right. And I've seen with my own breathwork stuff, people get rid of major stuff that's like been stuck down there for years. And so what I'm curious about is what and how you've seen that kind of progress, you know, but where these coaches come and they get so much more from their own stuff by getting rid of stuff. Yeah. So how does that work?
Well, because every psychological state, every emotional state, every physiological state has a corresponding breathing pattern, an associated breathing pattern. The way you breathe when you're happy and peaceful and calm is different than the way you breathe when you're anxious or afraid or upset. And we see those obvious extremes, but on a subtle level it's very true. And so it's a two-way street. If you move from one state to the other and you observe the changes in the breathing happen that occur, then you can identify that breathing change, and that breathing change becomes a tool or a skill that you can now apply to change your state. And that's what Tony Robbins is really into, how to get into a beautiful state, how to get into a very resourceful state, and he recognizes tools that do it. And breathing is practically instant. You know, it's a very quick way to manage your emotional state, manage your psychological state. It's why warriors, Navy SEALs, Special Forces people are trained in breath control and breath awareness, because they need it to make sure that they stay in the zone, they hit the ground running, and they're in their best. They show up at their best. Breathing is a tool to make sure that happens.
So how do you explain then the process that our guys go through, which is where they get good stuff, they learn a little bit about what you're talking about there, but then they also get rid of, you know, all this stuff that comes up that I'm going through right now, to be honest. You know, all this stuff that comes up, that's so therapeutic and so powerful. How has that come about? You know, how's that developed?
If we think about creative energy, for example, creative energy is a felt thing, it's a body thing, it's a heart thing. And most of our training and most of our managing is a head thing. And so the better we get at head tripping and more rational and intelligent, we can actually leave the body and we get disconnected from the body. And breathing puts us back in touch with the body, and being back in touch with the body puts us back in touch with creative energy. So breathing is that little missing piece for a lot of people who don't realize that, hey, the body is the source of creative energy. It's where creative energy originally, the impulse arises from a felt experience. And breathing expands that felt experience. And we begin to sense things better, our intuition gets better, and this body intelligence and heart intelligence is awakened by breath work.
And the therapeutic value of this is, I've seen it to be enormous. It's certainly helped me massively. How can we get that message out to more people? I mean, I've joined Dan's group, right, because I've seen the possibilities of this. How can we get and use breathwork more from that therapeutic framework?
Once people have an experience, like I work with a lot of medical doctors, but only if they have actually had an experience. If they've read about it, it makes sense intellectually, that breathing's a good idea, we should practice. But when you have a real biological cellular experience, you're convinced and you become a missionary for it.
Yeah.
And so the key is to give people an experience. And that's not hard to do, because there are so many different breathing techniques you can start with that will create and produce felt experiences and obvious shifts in your focus and your concentration, in your situational awareness, in your ability to manage emotions and deal with pain. And so once a person gets some kind of an experience, I think it's natural you're motivated to go, well, what else can I do? How much further can I go? It's like you guys teach firewalking, and my big lesson in firewalking was, whoa, if I can walk on fire and not get burned, what else is possible? What else can I do? And so that's, if you give someone an experience on a level of breath and they get some result, it's natural for them to begin to go, whoa, maybe I can do this, and now they're going.
So you've got all these trained coaches, you know, the guys like Tony and all. These guys are peak. Maybe not peak athletes, but, you know, they've done NLP, they've done the whole thing. What are they getting from learning about breathwork that they've never thought about before? You know, how are you tweaking their experience so that they become better at what they do? What are you teaching them?
A return to the basics. I mean, even the greatest virtuoso musicians practice the scales before they perform. And so high performers understand that principle. You know, it's a good idea to come back to basics. And breathing is one of those basic things that we overlook, we underestimate, but as soon as we begin to play with, the big aha comes back and go, right, I knew it. I knew I should be doing more of this. And so it's that fundamental principle of returning to the basics upon which all of our skills are built. And some people, they learn a couple of things and they go on and they learn more and more and they forget that they learned all those things because of those first few basic things that they practiced. And breathing puts us back in that position. Like good leaders, good teachers are really good students. That's what they are. And as soon as you become a student of the breath, it awakens that original joy of learning and discovery. And it's something so simple and so obvious, we tend to overlook it. We tend to underestimate it. And so as soon as you just begin to focus on your breathing and look for details, sense the details, you're in the game. And your intuition starts to click in, your motivation comes back, and you go, yeah, this is something really important. And damn it, I'm going to start focusing on it more.
Okay, so Dan, what would you say is the one single biggest benefit that people get by going through either a breathwork class or a breathwork program?
We are reconnecting with our spirit. We're reconnecting with the original life force that built our body. We're reconnecting with the energy of life itself in a conscious way. And if you're a warrior, that means that, for example, you can manage your emotional state, you can manage your psychological state, you have greater situational awareness, your intuition gets better. That reconnecting with this, call it the spirit of life, the life force, the impulse that's responsible for animating us and having a direct relationship to it, a personal relationship to your own life force. When you become conscious of your breathing, you're connecting to yourself in a really deep and powerful way.
Wow. That's great. We would love to invite you to come over to England to run some breathwork programs, Dan. I think, you know, when you find somebody and you get to meet them and you find that there's some connection and hopefully we get on reasonably well, I just want to immerse my guys and the people that I train that have got so much from it into the expert. So what do you think we could do for all of these Firewalk instructor trainers, Dan, that we've trained from all over the world? Because these guys either know Tolly or know Peggy or know me. What can we do for these guys, do you think, in the UK later on in the year?
There have been some amazing breakthroughs in the art and science of breathwork in the last few months and in the last couple of years. And so even people who've, you know, did some breathwork early on and they saw how powerful it was, things have taken off. And we've been building on each other's knowledge and skills. And there are some things that are at the cutting edge of breathwork training right now which are extraordinary. And so it's a matter of catching up on the science and the art.
Great. So with a bit of luck, Dan and I will work something out, and in September, UK, you better be ready, because we're going to put something together. And you know, if you've done breath work, this is going to be like breath work, but on another level. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.